Thank you, everyone, for viewing in with us for our regular council meeting for September 9. I now call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. I'd ask my council members if there's any added items to the agenda. I do not see any, so we will move down to the adoption of the agenda. And Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion the council adopt the regular and closed council meeting agenda for Monday, September 9th, 2024 at 1 p.m.
Thank you. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Moving down to item 2A, please, of your agenda, page 3. Regular council meeting minutes, August 26, 2024. Does council have any questions, additions, or deletions? I then will state that we have consensus to accept the minutes for August 26, 2024. Item 3A, page 9. We are now moving to our bylaws, bylaw 2024-37. At this time, we are looking for first reading and a public hearing, and I see that we have Mr. Sloan with us, and you will be speaking. He's our municipal land use planner, and he will be speaking today for us. Welcome.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This land use bylaw amendment, proposed bylaw amendment, came from an application from a landowner looking to rezone their property at 4609 52nd Street from the general residential R2 district to the highway commercial A CHA district. The subject parcel is within the East Olds Area Redevelopment Plan, which identifies it as being within the highway overlay district. That overlay district is for all properties that are within 70 meters of the Highway 2A center line and encourages redevelopment to be a mix of residential and commercial. The reason for the applicant seeking to rezone their property is to do that, to redevelop the property with additions that are commercial, and then in phases some more residential components as well over the next few years. Each of those phases would be reviewed at the development permit time. Mixed-use development is not currently listed within the CHA district. Mixed-use commercial at grade is, but this property does have residential uses below grade. Secondary suite was approved there earlier this year. And the additional plans that they have for the property have a horizontal separation of spaces where both commercial and residential uses are at grade as well, and then some above grade residential. So the mixed use commercial at grade definition does not is not appropriate for their plans with this. We do have a definition in the land use bylaw for mixed use development, which means a building or buildings used for both residential and commercial purposes on the same parcel of land. So as part of this amendment, with the rezoning, the amendment proposes to add that definition to the CHA district as a discretionary use. So development permit applications for that type of use would still currently fall to council as the development authority. The recommendation is that bylaw 2024-37 be given first reading as presented, and that Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Before we move forward, I'd like to remind council once again that bylaw requires a public hearing. Elected officials are encouraged to reserve all debate until after the public hearing has been conducted and the public input on the proposed bylaw has been received. If you have questions directly to the statement that Mr. Sloan has made at this time, before we put first reading on the floor, I'd ask you to Councillor. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks. Not a debate, just clarification. I recall we did a development permit or a change to the land use bylaw very similar to this for property on 50th Avenue, the old Stevenson jewelry shop, where we approved basement residential in a commercial on grade property. That's very identical, just a different area of town, right?
That's correct. In that, in order to accommodate that redevelopment, we added mixed-use development within the C1 district, and this being CHA was not affected by that, so we're back with a different land use district doing a very similar thing, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just for clarification then through you to Mr. Sloan. So do you see more, like for adding this just discretionary use, do you see there might be more of requests added, or is this, because this office is not one office? Okay.
Thank you. The area redevelopment plan called a mix of workspaces. Workspaces necessarily have ground floor commercial residential above. They're not.
2024-37 amendment to land use 1-23.
Deputy Mayor, I now call for in favor. That is carried. And for a public hearing, please. Councillor Daly.
JR 15th, 2024 at 1 in council chambers be set as the time and place for the public hearing on bylaw 2024-37.
Councillor Daly. For the vote. That's carried. Mr. Sloan, we're going to be moving now to page 14, please. Mr.
This plan, North, which is a non-residential plan for the section of town, 3 annexed 2022. The municipal development plan calls for any large parcels of land that are not within an area structure plan to be within an area structure plan prior to any development or subdivision. We've been working with a consultant on this plan for a little over a year, and they've provided the final, or the draft to be presented here. I won't go into too many details. I'll stay high level at first reading here. Essentially, it's a plan that is bound on the west and south sides by the two highways, by 2A and Highway 27. And for the most part, along the highways, the plan calls for highway commercial zoning. And then the interior of the plan area would be industrial uses. The plan is not very prescriptive on the types of industrial uses, but it is intended to provide a longer term inventory of industrial land over the next several decades. The consultant, we've asked them to come and present in greater detail at a public hearing. So they are preparing a presentation for that time where they will go over the plan in more detail. So at this point, the recommendation is that bylaw 2024-38 be given first reading as presented, and that Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Does council have any questions to the statements from Mr. Sloan? Seeing none, I would ask for first reading. Councillor Blatt.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw number 2024-38, the Northeast Area Structure Plan, be given first reading as presented.
Thank you. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And for public hearing date, please. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that Tuesday, October 15, 2024, at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw 2024-38.
Thank you. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Mr. Sloan. New business, please, page 54, item 4A, Committee of the Whole recommendations, and I will turn it over to our acting CAO, Linderman.
Thank you, Mayor. These policies were presented last week at the Committee of the Whole meeting. So today we're just looking for approval to rescind policy 408C and policy 802C, and then to accept as presented 803C.
Thank you. You have a question, Councillor Cummings?
No, I'll make the motion if you like.
Thank you. Starting with A,
Can we do them all together, or do you want them separate?
them separately, please.
All right. I move that council rescind policy, or council policy 408C, use of emergency operations center, EOC.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? I call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And now for B, please. Councillor Wilson.
I make the motion that council move to rescind council policy 802C, receipt of donations.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Questions? I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And C, please. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council, I recommend that council move the policy 803C, request for donation sponsorship and promotional items has been reviewed and approved as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. Questions? I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for that, and we will now move to page 60 of your agenda, item 4B. Page 60. And we will be looking for some nominations from the floor, please, with regards to these three appointments that we will be looking for today. If we receive more than three, we will move into a vote. We'll start with Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor. I
Nominate.
nominate, thank you. I don't know why I forgot the word. I nominate Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Councillor Blatz, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, thank you, I do.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Daly.
Mayor Dahl, I nominate Heather Ryan.
Thank you. Does Councillor Ryan accept the nomination?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do.
And look for a third. Go ahead. Who put their hand up? Councillor Cummings?
Well, I was going to jump out and just nominate myself, Mayor, but if anybody else wants to nominate me, I'll go for that too.
I'd be happy to nominate you, Councillor Cummings. Would you accept the nomination?
Yes, I shall.
Thank you. We have the three nominations on the floor being, do you have a question?
No, I had
Oh, sorry? Okay, we have another nomination from Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, I was going to nominate Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Wilson, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Thank you. I will have the legislation clerk pass out some ballots for us. Is that, yes, is there any further nominations? I see none. you. We'll have our legislative clerk announce the appointees.
Thank you, through the chair. So far, we have a tie between Wilson and Cummings, and Blatz and Ryan are in the lead with the most votes for the first two seats. So we're going to do a second vote for Wilson or Cummings.
You. Throw our last papers away. Thank you for your patience.
Congratulations, Councillor Blatz, Councillor Ryan, and Councillor Cummings.
Thank you to our legislation clerk and our CAO, Linderman, acting. All right, I need someone to complete that motion on the floor, please. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council appoint Councillor Blatz, Councillor Ryan, and Councillor Cummings to the Procedural Bylaw Review Ad Hoc Committee.
Yes, we have a motion on the floor from Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much for your help, administration. We'll move forward now to page 61, and this is item 4C, Notice of Motion, Council Salary and Council Remuneration Policy 10C. Once again, our acting CAO, Linderman, will speak to.
So Council Remuneration Policy 106C was presented last week at the Committee of the Whole. Today, we're just bringing it back to Council as was recommended for consideration.
Very good. Now I'm going to, are we just opening this up once again up to the floor? All right, and I believe we're starting with, any questions? Are you, a question, Councillor Ryan?
Not a question, but a comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, appreciate it. I have no problem with how this is presented. The policy seems sound, and perhaps the next council that comes into the seats might change it anyway. My only comment to make would be that I find it a shame that it went this route, and the fact that all the work that was done by the Remuneration Committee has gone by the wayside. But I want to thank that committee in particular, because it's a committee made up of residents, for all the hard work that they did, and appreciate the willingness to serve on that committee. So that's the only comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further? Councillor Daly.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment as well in that I'm in agreement with the policy the way it is now. The one part that I feel that was left out was the boards and commission pay, as far as our remuneration coming back to the town and then being put into the coffers of the town and then distributed to the councillors, just for transparency to the public. I think that was one of my main thoughts for going this route, was for the transparency, so that our citizens can see and be aware of what is happening here in council, not only in these sessions, but also in the boards and commissions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. No one over here? Okay, we'll go back to Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I appreciate what Councillor Daly said. I do believe it should be transparent, and I think maybe we could add something in the policy saying that those who are on commissions, that particular pay should be posted as well, and I don't know how that would be worded, but Director Lindeman, maybe you could wordsmith that a little bit, but I do think that we need to have it posted. I mean, we post our salaries. Those commissions typically post theirs on their websites, and it could be very easily tracked and posted as well for our council and for our community, I should say, to see. So I don't know if we need to have it as part of this policy, but I do think we did have that discussion at Committee of the Whole, and I think it should be something that is a standard.
Our legislation clerk, would you like to make a comment? And then I see some concurring happening on this left side here.
Thank you. Through the chair. So regarding the transparency, why don't you, any elected officials, provide us with your claim? I'll post them on the website. Because, I mean, the amounts are already there on that ABC's website. It's not easily found, usually, to drill down. Yes, I would put the onus back to elected officials and say, you get those things and we could potentially post them. It's probably the easiest route. Do you agree, Director Linderman?
Yes, I think that is the best route to go, for sure.
Yes, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So question then would be, Director Lindeman, do you think that that would be a quarterly thing? Because I know that the commission, one commission I sit on is quarterly meetings and the other one is every other month. So I'm not sure how that would you want that posted, when it comes through, or do you want it posted quarterly, or, every 6 months or once a year? How would you like that posted? Or
I think if we timed it with when we post our remuneration, quarterly, so that would fit well.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings.
I think that might be a little challenging. The Waste Management Commission, we only get paid every 6 months. So the timelines are going to be different to a degree and to an extent, right? So whenever the commission pays us, we can report that to administration, and administration can, however they see fit, add it to our remuneration online. I think that's probably a better idea than focusing on one specific date or time, just because of the variations in the pay cycles.
Certain our Director of Corporate Services, Sheena, can make that happen. As long as she gets the information, she definitely has the ability to record it properly. Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd just like to thank the council for coming up with a solution so quick and with so many few words. So, thank you.
Thank you. There's been lots of discussion on this with us as a whole, so that's very good. Thank you very much. Nothing further then? Yes. Go ahead, Legislative Clerk McKinnon.
So as we've expressed, we need council to make a decision on this because we're holding up a bunch of policies, right? So for the final point that I'm hearing that be added, I would add it to the end underneath expenditure tracking. Third point would say something along the lines of, elected officials shall provide their external boards, committees, and commissions paid to the Director of Finance or the Finance Department, and those expense claims will be posted on the Town of Old's website as received. That work?
Councillor Cummings?
I move the council approve the council remuneration policy 106C as amended, and that it come into effect on January the 1st, 2025.
Yes, we have a motion on the floor, and I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Was there a question?
Was there an opposed vote?
Oh, well, I saw you do this. You didn't vote? Are you opposed, Deputy Mayor Walsh? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. for pointing that out. I have a screen here, and an arm only went this far. You have to be high. Thank you. Moving please to page 66. Page 66, item 4D, Code of Conduct Review Committee recommendations. And once again, we'll open with acting CAO, and I'm certain that we'll have some direction led by perhaps Councillor Daly.
So again, at the regular council meeting on August 26th, council reviewed the Code of Conduct Review Committee's proposed recommendations, and those are all being brought forward today for consideration. And I guess.
Thank you, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. And so further to our Committee of the Whole meeting, when we did discussions on this, you can see on the title page of the motions there, you can see the items in red have not changed from our initial discussions. Throughout the process, our legislative coordinator has asked for comments to come back. And so there's a few things that we need to decide on here. If you notice on your one item 4.5, 4.6, we have to decide, we have to have consensus on what point that we are going to accept into our policy. And then Councillor Cummings has also sent in some suggestions that we need to discuss as well in an email earlier in the week here. So I think the first point of business is that we should discuss points 4.5 and 4.6. And if there's any other discussion as far as any of the other items in red, then we can continue on with that discussion as well. And then we'll move into the points that Councillor Cummins has mentioned. So I'll turn it back to you.
Yep. Thank you very much, Councillor Daly. I concur with your direction. I feel the best way to look at this time would be to stay on page 67, where it's directed right in the first and or. So shall we start with there's an A and a B. We have a choice of either A or B, and or if you choose to put something else on the floor. The first one was referred to as councillors may publicly criticize decisions of council as long as they are underlying facts are accurately communicated. Would there like to be discussion on this point? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. I just want to deal with both of them together. I think
Yes.
it's probably, do you want to pick A or do you want to pick B? And
I like that.
If that's okay with you, I would
I
like.
certainly like that because, yeah, it would be much easier on time as well.
I think so. From my opinion, I like B. I don't think that we should be publicly criticizing decisions of council. I think that, it's pretty stated in a training that we had that we, we can vote against something and not be in favor of something, but, at the end of the day, the council decision rules. The only thing I would like to say, and this has happened to me on a couple of occasions where I have voted against the majority, and I've been asked by the press afterwards why I had voted against. So I think that needs to be stated in here in B. Just adding by four words would make it easy to do so, because they already know that you did not vote against the majority if they had been watching the council meeting. So you could state that, but then I also think you should say something like just after council on an issue or providing reasons for the decision. Because that's what they're typically asking is, why did you vote against it? So I just think that should be covered. But at the end of the day, I voted against it, yes, and this is why. However, council, I support council's decision that they made. That's how I've always handled it, and that's, I think, the reason that the way we should be handling it.
Thank you. I concur with B as well. before I move around the table, we can all state our reasons. I think it speaks to that by stating in a manner that respects the decision of council and the other elected officials. To me, that is the easy wording for that. But let's just continue going around the table. Let's just keep going. Okay, we'll go to, I was just going to say, let's just kind of just go right around the circle. So we'll go Daly, Councillor Daly, we've done Councillor Ryan, then we'll continue around the circle. Is that okay with you, Deputy Mayor? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with point B as well, in that it is very respectful the way it's laid out there, as far as we all have our own opinions, and sometimes we don't agree with the majority of council, but we have to be respectful of the decision of council. And so I really think that B lays that out in a clear, concise manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, option A to me is a little bit too open-ended, so unless you're going to wordsmith this thing endlessly to try and make A palatable to folks, certainly like B, where you can indicate that you didn't support. I'm sure this will come up at some point in the next 12, 13 months. So I'm okay with B as it's stated, and just indicating didn't agree and move from there.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, A would be mine recommendation. But the reason for that is councils don't always make perfect recommendations with a majority. There's got to be a mechanism for advocacy for a change. And it has to be based on fact, not opinion, not whatever. I agree somewhat with Councillor Ryan that B can be reworded to make that so. But yeah, show respect for decisions of council, no problem with that. But if you want to challenge council, you should not be prevented from challenging council if you have the facts that show something different. So that is my thinking on this.
Thank you for sharing that. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. My decision, I think, would be more leaning towards option B, because I think that we must remember that we can have an open, honest discussion during a council meeting, and we can challenge each other at that point in time. And we can do it in a respectful manner, and I don't think that we need to start getting into any type of, no better term than mudslinging at each other, because we have to remember that we represent the community as a whole, and that on the decisions that we are making, that we are trying to do, we have to try and do them to the best of our ability based on that knowledge, knowing that we are trying to represent our community. So I would lean more towards option B.
Thank you. And Councillor Cummings?
Not like I want to follow the pack here, but B is, in my opinion, the obvious choice. A, to me, just seems contradictory to the MGA and its policies on supporting council decisions after they're made. However, procedure B here is a way to judiciously criticize council's decision without getting slanderous or rude. We can say, yes, I voted this way, council voted that way, the democratic process has won, these are my arguments against council's decision. So we're allowed to do that, and I think B allows us to do that, and that's a formal, effective way of criticizing the decision of council. I'm not too sure if we have in our procedural bylaw that we cannot readdress an issue after a certain period of time through a notice of motion only. So that creates kind of a rule around getting that change done once a decision's been made. So I think B is a great way to do A.
Thank you. Question, Deputy Mayor?
No, thank you for that. And I can live with B also. I just want to point out that A is taken straight out of a judge's decision on this issue. And he actually said this, so that's why it's in there. He just says, yeah, you can criticize. It has to be factual. It can't be opinion. Then you can get away with it.
I respect your point. That's well taken as well. So we've heard from everyone, and of course, we are now with pretty well unanimous, item B with no changes. As is. So that would be item number 4, is that correct, Marcy, for the code of conduct we will be looking for a motion for?
That's one of the decisions, yeah, for sure.
Can we do them separately?
Absolutely, you can.
I would ask for a motion, please, for item 4 on your recommendation for 2024-35. That's on page 66 of your agenda.
Sorry, Mayor, I'm confused about what you're asking us to do here. If you look at the motions on page 66, are you asking for the fourth and final motion in that list?
For the motion for the area we discussed for the 2024-35 Code of Conduct.
I don't believe there's a motion presented by administration for specifically that change. It's a group of changes that we want answers from for that particular bylaw, 2024-35.
That's fine. Yeah, at the end, fine. Okay, let's move forward.
All right, so we can take a look at all the changes that we made in the policies as we work down the list here. Everything that is in red that has been changed for either updating or housekeeping purposes in the policies is something that we can discuss. Anything that's in black, of course, we didn't change from the original policies and bylaws. So we can work our way down. If you have any questions on the original ones, I think this is our next point that we should work through to make sure that everybody's in agreement with what our committee has changed or updated. And then we can take a look at Councillor Cummings' emails. So I would open the floor to discussion, Mayor, in regards to things that we were presented with and reviewed at our last Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. As per recommendation from Councillor Daly, we'll open the floor. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in red on page 67, under point 3 of policy 113C, public at large appointments, by consensus during the Committee of the Whole meeting, the CAO recommended an addition to that saying, unless otherwise specified by council bylaw, be added to that. We agreed to that unanimously by consent. It wasn't updated or changed, which I guess was the way we were being presented it, so we could talk about it again here. But I would like to see that actual change in that terminology as we agreed in the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Could you just elaborate?
Absolutely. So the CAO...
Point of order. I can speak to this. It's my error. I missed putting it in there, and it will be in the next draft. I thought I had sent out an email. I think it's typed in my drafts, and I didn't hit send to speak to the authority verbiage. So Councillor Cummings is correct. Council consensus at committee consensus at COTW was to expand the authority. It is done. I don't know where it is right now, but it will come back in the next reading for you.
Thank you, Marcy. Just to answer Dan's question real quick, so everybody's aware of the wording that the CAO had mentioned, was unless otherwise specified by council bylaw, was the consensus that we had at the end there. So other than that, I'm perfectly happy with all of the red line changes that are on this.
And I can state that the legislation clerk did make that mention to me prior to this council meeting. Councillor Daly?
I just thank you. Good catch.
Anything further? Very good. Go ahead, Councillor Daly.
Just moving down the agenda then, page 69 and 70, there's no red markings in there. 71, we move on to elected official appointments. 107C, again, very little changes there. Public at large appointments. Nothing there to discuss. Code of conduct now we get into, and just to remind council that we did engage legal on a lot of the things that we did change here for housekeeping and updating. So some of the things, two items. Thank you, legislative coordinator, for pointing that out. But
One
if
moment.
there's any comments, I'd be happy to discuss them.
You, Councillor Ryan?
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. And through you to legislative coordinator. Just have a question on on page 71, under the definitions on the standing committee. Do we even have standing committees anymore? Because, or do you consider committee of the whole a standing committee? No, you don't. Okay. So I'm just wondering, do we really need the definition there? Because I don't think we have any standing committees.
Thank you, through the chair. When I got here 10 years ago, there was standing committees. I don't know that we've created any. I think they're being called more like joint municipal type things if we are, because the Standing Committee on Transportation had more partners from like county and other places. I don't know that it matters if we have it or not. It gives us the option to have one should we want one, more than anything if we take it out, so.
Okay, fair enough. I looked at it and I went, we really haven't had one in the entire time we've had this particular makeup of council, and I don't even remember if we did it in the previous one either, so. But it's fair enough if you want to keep it, that's fine, but I just was wondering about the definition
Okay.
being that.
Deputy Mayor Walsh.
Yeah, I'm just curious if EDAC would be considered a standing committee of council. Okay.
Sorry. I would consider it as a standing committee of council, but it's a committee of council that you created by bylaw. And I guess, it fits the same terms, I guess, but.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because to me that most boards create standing committees, but they're usually motions passed by the board, so we do it by bylaw. So I'm just curious. It could be called a standing committee, but I guess we could have committees that are not by bylaw.
I would say that the note by our legislative clerk would be in order that we leave them in the event that we do have a standing committee. But great question, Councillor Wine. And thanks for the feedback, Deputy Mayor Walsh. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we can look at page 83, paragraph F. This is an interesting one because it's been in the news an awful lot lately in the last couple of years. These code of conduct reviews that are being done by council. Most recently, we can look at the Medicine Hat situation where the mayor was found to have violated the code of conduct, was investigated by council, given a whack load of punishment for that, sanctions, and then those sanctions were reversed almost exclusively, except for the apology, by the judicial review. I know that Alberta Municipalities has a resolution out to permanently create a third-party organization with the province to do these investigations. I'm in favor of removing subparagraph 1 and 2 from this, that unless the councillor admits fault and apologizes immediately, then any sort of investigation not be done by peers on council. There's a little bit of a rationale from that, and like I mentioned with the Medicine Hat case, it is not the only example that we see right now where councillors are forced to go to judicial review due to the inconsistency in sanctions being leveled against peers. We are politicians. It's difficult sometimes to admit that we're politicians, but we cannot eliminate political thought when we have these sort of situations. And in often cases, these violations are or can be of a personal nature from one council to another council. And any sort of illusion to create a void of emotional feeling in this sort of thing is difficult. So I would recommend that we remove section 1 and 2, and we don't investigate ourselves for code of conduct. That's in line with Alberta municipalities' thought on this, as will be voted at our next election, or next council, or next convention next week. So I think that would be in line with what's going on with the province, what's going on with other jurisdictions within the province. Not what has in the past gone, but what is lending towards the trend of the future, and that's council's not investigating themselves.
You have a comment, a couple comments, and then I was going to also speak. Councillor Blatz, and then our legislative clerk would like to, I believe, speak.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you. Well, the way that item F reads, depending on the nature of the complaint, yada, 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 which we may include proceeding to item 1 or proceeding to item 2. So I think at this point in time, to leave that as it is written until we find out exactly how the province is going to move forward with their investigation process, we could leave it as is and move forward from there, just because we don't know exactly how it's going to what's going to happen at whether the resolution will be passed and how much advocacy that will be result from the resolution to the province. So, and reminder that all of our bylaws are living documents, and they can come back to us at any point in time and be amended and changed as need be. So that is my only comment to that.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. I concur with that as well, because from my years of experience of going to Alberta, AUMA and Alberta municipalities, which is the new name, it's very good to hear all the sides of other municipalities before you make a decision. You want to hear all sides before you make a final decision. That's just my thought. Did you have a point before I move over here? Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to add my support behind Councillor Blatz's comment. I'd hate to shut this down as an avenue. It's a tool that's available to council. To completely remove it, to me, would seem to be premature. I guess it's a resolution with AB Munis, which is coming up. But even if the resolution passes, I think it's a tool that should still be provided to council. And as Councillor Blatz so eloquently pointed out, it says, depending on the subject of the complaint, and council may consider. So it leaves us with a tool, and I'm fine leaving it in there.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I'm equally fine with leaving it in there, and this is the reason why. Just because a resolution passes at Alberta Munis does not mean the province is going to pass it as well. So then you leave yourself open to having no course of action. This allows us to have at least a backup in case something like that occurs. Taking it out now is exactly what Councillor Wilson said, premature. I think I understand where Councillor Cummings is coming from. I just think that we need to leave it in there for the time being, and again, this could always be changed later on.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Cummings?
Thanks. Just a closing comment, because I don't think I'm expressing what I'm trying to say very clearly. So I'm going to try that again, a little simpler. Irregardless, or not, that's not a word, sorry, regardless of what Alberta municipalities does or votes on, and regardless of how the province reacts to it, the fundamental argument I'm having is that peers shouldn't be judiciously investigating peers. It allows for too much conflict. We have an opportunity here to take the lead above Alberta municipalities, above the province, and simply eliminate that, and have, in all cases, a third party investigate these situations. They don't occur often. I don't recall the last time. It's never occurred in this council. It occurred, I think, just once in the last council. It's not something that happens all the time. So we can take a lead here. We don't have to follow suit behind other people. We can simply say we're not going to investigate ourselves, and we're going to have a third party investigate all incidences of code of conduct allegations. That's what I was trying to explain, not that we should be doing or relying on the province's response to a resolution of Alberta municipalities. So take it as you wish. I hear that that's no support on council, so I'm not going to belabor the point any further.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Doll. I thought Councillor Daly had oh, sorry, Councillor Daly. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Councillor Cummings. However, in this instance, I think that it could be a very minor little complaint and something that could just be handled with a simple, quick investigation that could be just say, well, this is frivolous or this is not frivolous, and then you turn it over to a third party. I wouldn't want to see a third party automatically come in all the time, right at the very beginning of a complaint, only because of the cost involved in doing so. I mean, it wasn't cheap to do the last investigation that this council had gone through, the previous council had gone through. And so therefore, I think at least having it in here would allow an ad hoc committee, and not just one councillor, of course, you're talking about an ad hoc committee, that could look at it and say, okay, this has got to be proceed to another higher body, and we don't want to deal with it. You know, so it at least allows that to happen.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Yeah, and again, I've stated my position. And I also wanted to just comment, as you talk to councillors from other municipalities, which I know we all do, I guess I live in a little bit of a bubble. And maybe it's because we've got such a fantastic council that gets along and everything. We don't have a high incidence or any incidence of code of conduct. But you talk to other councillors from other jurisdictions and municipalities, and it surprises me the number of code of conduct complaints, investigations, and reviews that take place. My point is, leaving this in, again, provides an avenue, a door, an option, as Councillor Ryan said, depending on the type of the complaint, the seriousness of the claim, for council to address, hopefully, in a quick, nimble, and agile fashion.
Thank you. Before I ask the question around the table, once again for consensus, did you wish to speak, Councillor Daly?
No, I would just concur that it just, it gives us more options in how we handle situations, whether they be minor or whether they be major, and so I like to keep that scope open for the investigations. The only other thing that I would like to mention is on your request for proposal there, we got point 8 and point 11 and point 15 that still had changes in 107C, and I know there was discussions on that in our committee of the whole, so those are the only other changes in 107C.
Very good. So would you like to move forward with that then? Okay. So I'm just stating also, and thank you very much for bringing that up, Councillor Cummings, but the consensus that I see around this table was that we'll stay still on that one for now. Go ahead, Councillor Daly.
Thank you. So that brings us down to policy 113C, which is on page, to scroll down. '74. Yeah. Do you want to start making motions now? Okay, thank you.
Yes. So you're going back to page 66? Thank you. So separate motions. Councillor Cummings?
Policy 103C terms of reference.
Oh, did you want as amended for each?
Sorry, if there were no amendments made on the floor, then you're not accepting it as amended, you're accepting it as presented. We would probably just do amendments when we get to the bylaw, from what I can tell so far.
Okay, so friendly amendment for you? No? Just as, okay. Okay, thank you for your motion, Councillor Cummings. So what you're saying is we're going to vote on every one of these? Thank you. I'll call for the vote then. Those in favor? That is to rescind policy 103C. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Yes. May I have a motion, please? For number 2, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approves policy 107C, elected officials appointments as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Those in favor? That's carried. And please, for the public at large, Councillor Wilson. Oh,
Point of order.
Go ahead.
I would just recommend, do you want, or I would ask, sorry, would you like 113C to come back with the authority written out properly? Okay. Yeah, so just accept it as amended and direct us to bring it back to the next council meeting, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Go ahead.
Before we do that, sorry, can I just get a clarification of what's being asked here? So if we accept the policy, so if we say the council approves, and I'm not making a motion,
You're speaking.
we
Coun-
accept it, or can we approve it as amended? Because there's only the one amendment that we want, right, that we've asked for.
No, we'll stick to the legislation clerk, and Councillor Wilson has that point. Did you want to move forward, Councillor Wilson?
Sure, I'm not sure what I'm moving forward on, but
You're moving the public large appointments as
as
amended.
presented and to be brought back. Right. Yes. Yep. Yep. Council accepts policy 113C, public at large appointments as presented, and directs administration to bring the policy back with the amendments as discussed by council.
I think that's an order. Yep, that's very good. That's the motion on the floor. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Now, please, we're looking for 2024. Motion? No?
Madam Mayor?
Councillor Cummings.
Thank you. So we already did the consensus that was in the request there for 4545. So if I can bring a new point that I presented in the email that I sent to the legislative coordinator on, when did I do that? August the 27th. I brought a couple of points. We've already discussed the policy points. There's just the 2 points in the bylaw 2024-35. And the first part was just some typographical issues that have been dealt with. The question was, or the point I brought up in one issue, 6.5, 6.6, was just a thought. I'd just like to see what others' opinions are on that one there. Every single statement, starting with a bullet line in this entire bylaw, is a shall. It's a directive, except for this one. This is the only statement made. Sorry? You did that? Oh, you changed that one? You know what? I was going by the notes you sent back to me in the email and not the changes. I apologize. So I'd like to talk then about Section 7 under confidentiality. And I understand that this is a perfectly legal and acceptable legal discussion on confidentiality. But let's talk about plain talk. Let's make it a little simple and simply say that because of our jobs, we get confidential information. And regardless of where we get it, when we get it, or how we get it, it's confidential information and should be treated as confidential information. A very simple statement like that creates less verbiage to be discussed and interpreted. It simply says we shall treat all confidential information in the exact same manner, regardless of how we get it. The last point that the committee brought up was the 7.3, which was again talking about information received in a closed session, which is not the topic of 7.3. 7.3 is information given outside of a closed session, And the new point that the committee brought in was, again, referencing information brought in a closed session. If we don't merge it all into one simple statement about confidentiality, I believe that that statement should be separated from 7.3, just to eliminate the confusion that it's not part of a closed session discussion, or it is part of a closed session discussion, where 7.3 is not about closed sessions. In fact, it's about the opposite of closed session. So one or the other of those two things, I think we should just have I didn't really explain that too well.
I will, the committee members are here, and I remember that was quite a lot of discussion that we had together, and there was a purpose for that. And I'd just like to ask if you could recall.
Apologize, Mayor. I'm not criticizing the statement in any way whatsoever. That 7.3 amendment is required. It makes a lot of sense. It's just in a paragraph that talks about information not received in a closed session, and then that additional comment says about information received in a closed session. It just needs to be pulled out of 7.3 into its own paragraph or somewhere else. It just doesn't fit in there. Not that I disagree with it. It's a great statement, makes a lot of sense.
Very much. Councillor Blatz, and then I can make a point, or Councillor Walsh, you did some speaking to that. Perhaps you can speak to it as well.
I'll allow Councillor Walsh to go.
Thank
He
you.
was on the committee.
Yeah, and he made a very good point about that when we were speaking.
No, I don't think Councillor Cummings is asking for it to be removed. I think it's a great statement, and yeah, I advocate it for this statement. It maybe should be separate, because he is kind of right, that we're talking about council closed information. This is talking about council receiving information outside of council at other organizations that we may be part of, whether through council or what have you. Yeah, I think that's a good point, that it could be moved, added as an 8, and everything changed after that.
So would council be in favor by consensus to move it to a 7.4? Thank you. It's as amended with. I think we will keeping that to okay. Cummings.
So the other statement out was changing all of 7.3, not just to be a more inclusive. So I'm just going to read what I sent out in the email, and I'm sure everybody was sent the email that Marcy sent to me with her ideas on it. So everybody's seen this, but I haven't really heard, other than the legislative clerk's views, anybody else's views on this particular issue, and that's to simplify all privacy or all confidential information as confidential information. So I see this as encapsulating the concepts presented in 7.1, 7.2, and the addition of 7.3D that treats all confidential information as confidential information without specifying when, where, or how it was obtained. Example of a section where we say is confidential information, treat it as confidential. It just simplifies everything to kind of understand.
Daly, did you last?
And I appreciate what Cummings is saying, but I think it goes back to the way it is written now, and even though it may seem cumbersome, and maybe for some people it's confusing to read, under confidentiality, the more direct we individuals further, like it written, and I would like for that very reason. I've seen in the past where people have come.
They can misinterpret.
Councillor Walsh? I mean Deputy Mayor Walsh?
I would leave it as there's people who don't understand confidentiality, and having examples here of what it is, it's helpful. Just don't understand.
And conclude. Do we,
If there's any other further comments or suggestions, I think that's it for me.
did I get a motion for this? Well, we need a motion, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move the council accepts bylaw 35 as amended and consider giving first reading.
Not as amended. Yep. Thank you. Very good, Councillor Ryan. That's stated. I'm calling for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much for all your discussion, ladies and gentlemen. And we will move forward at this time to page 88 of your agenda. Am I correct?
Point of order. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with if we're going to accept that as the first reading, or if that means that you're going to go to make consider giving first reading is the motion. So,
The first reading.
Accepted legislative
as
clerk.
amended, and consider giving first reading. So that was our recommendation to you, so I guess I would have thought that you actually would have said, we give bylaw, that's what you want it to be? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so.
Thank you for checking back with us, Ms. McKinnon, and very good. All right, we have,
Point of order on that one then, too. We have given first reading to a bylaw. Is it not appropriate to set a public hearing for the? That's not a land use, that's only land use bylaws? Okey dokey, thank you very much.
we're going to move forward now and thank everybody for all your information sharing. We have people at the podium waiting for us for page 88 in your agenda. Please, item 4E. This is with regards to a chicken coop. Thank you. And will Mr. Sloan?
Thank you very much. This development permit application is for a chicken coop at 4829 46th Street. The property is zoned general residential. It's the R2 district. Chicken coops are a discretionary use in this district, and council is the development authority for the application. The site plan shown on page 90 identifies the coop and outdoor run as being larger than the maximum size allowed in the land use bylaw. The land use bylaw also does not allow any variances to be granted for chicken coop applications. So the recommendation, while it is to approve this development permit application, it is with a condition that an updated site plan be provided by the applicant showing that the outdoor run is decreased in size so that the run and coop combined are no larger than 10 square meters, which is the maximum outlined in the bylaw. The coop itself is within a detached garage, and then there's a door for the chickens to go outside into the run from there. But we are still, even though it is within the garage, we're still considering the coop and its size in combination with the run to make sure that the approval does align with the land use bylaw and there are no variances granted here. So the recommendation then is that council approve development permit application 24-144 as presented, subject to the conditions listed in the attached draft development permit. I will just note the condition I was speaking to regarding the size is condition 1 right at the top.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Does council have any questions for Mr. Sloan? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just have one question, and that is on page, I don't know what the page is. Can't see it, 95. On number 8 for the conditions, and it does say they have to comply with federal, provincial, and municipal legislation. I just want to make sure, just for clarification only, that this is includes our bylaw, so they have to comply with the bylaw that we have for urban hens, correct?
That's correct, yes. The
Okay.
community standards bylaw also outlines requirements for licensing and things like that. So,
Perfect, thank you.
yes.
Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So one odd question, I don't know if you know the answer to this one, though. Is the town of Olds or any portion of the town of Olds within a 100-kilometer radius of any commercial chicken production facility, to your knowledge?
I don't know the answer to that, no.
I got a lot of confused stares at us here. So in the provincial legislation and federal guidelines, if a domestic chicken in a municipality is found to have avian flu or any disease like that, all chickens within a 100-kilometer radius must be destroyed. I was at two separate briefings at Alberta municipalities and FCM about this issue, and the Chicken Growers Association were very concerned about that, and I was asked that we have a chicken bylaw, we do. Are we aware of any commercial chicken production facilities within our range? And I wasn't here in previous council when this bylaw was created, so I'm not sure if that was ever investigated. I see someone in the audience going, I know the answer to that. But it's something that I think that we need to know before I don't know how many chicken coops are in town anymore, but it is a very serious issue that was brought up by some rather significant agricultural businesses in our province. And I would like to know an answer to that at some point, that we can be aware of that type of major issue to our agricultural hub, which we are.
I'm sure our municipal land use planner will look into that in the future for us. Very good. Are there any further questions? Did I get a motion? Lots of, Councillor Daly, lots of discussion today.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the council approve development permit application DP 24-144 as presented, subject to the conditions listed in the attached draft development permit.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you for your time today. Moving down to page 97, please, of your agenda. Correspondence and information. Item 5A, we have two correspondents here. I'll get a motion on the floor first, and then if there's questions, I'll ask. Who would like to make that? Deputy Mayor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the correspondence and information report ending August 26, 2024 be received for information.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Does Council have any questions to these correspondence? Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to, I believe Councillor Ryan is our representative on this board. Can you give us a little bit of, no?
No, sorry, Councillor Daly, this is the assessment board. We do not have, I'm on the development appeal
Oh,
board.
I was wondering about the operational review that they had, and if you had any kind of input as to what they changed on that, just.
Not on the assessment board, no.
Okay, thank you.
We can just note that for our CEO, and maybe he can follow up with that question. Very good. Thank you very much. All right, if there's no further questions, we have a motion on the floor from Councillor or Deputy Mayor Walsh. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We are now at the end of our regular council meeting, ladies and gentlemen. We will be going into a closed session. And I will note, for those of you joining us via live streaming, the meeting stream will be replaced by a graphic while council is in a closed session. When the graphic is removed, that will indicate that the meeting is ready to reconvene. I would ask at this time, please, for a motion to move into closed. At this time, Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I move that we move into a closed session at 2:18 for item number 1 under FOIP section 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, which is the Cape representative update. Under item 2, FOIP section 24, advice from officials, which is their opinions on AB muni resolutions for next week. And item number 3, FOIP section 17, disclosure harmful to personal privacy, which is a personnel issue.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. And for those in the room, acting CAO. le-
So for the first item, it will be Mary Jane Harper, Marcy McKinnon, and myself. Second item will be Marcy and myself, and no administration for item number 3.
Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen, and have now reconvened back to regular council meeting, and we do have a rise and report, and I would ask for Council Ryan for number 1.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that we accept the presentation or the update from our CAPE business representative as information.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried, thank you. And for item 2, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I move that council accept as presented the report on Alberta Muni's resolutions.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried, thank you. And for item 3, a personnel daily. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council accept the report on personnel for information.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. Call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much for your patience and your time with us today. I will give consent for closing this meeting and adjourning at 3:27 p.m.